Okay, this is the Unit 2 Quiz 1 review. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, question number 1, it says determine if the sequence is arithmetic, geometric. All right, so we've done this several times. So what we're going to do is we are going to first determine whether or not it is geometric. So in order to determine whether or not it's geometric, we have to, what I always do, I just look at the first two numbers, and that is there anything that I can multiply to 17 to get to 46? That's the first, that's the first thing. And the answer is no. There's nothing I can find. All right. So move that over there. Okay. So because of the fact that I know I can't multiply, geometric is off the table. So now I'm just going to go ahead and start subtracting. So that's going to be 29. This is going to be 57. This is going to be 97. This is going to be 149. And then this is going to be 213. I mean, we've done this several times before. We keep subtracting 28, 40, 62, and then 74. Remember, we keep subtracting until we find our common terms. Oh, here we go, 12, 12, and 12. So to get the next number in the sequence, we're going to take all these numbers and we're going to add it all up, and then we're going to get our final answer. So that's going to be 12 plus 74 plus 213 plus 562, and that gives me 861. That's my next number in the sequence. All right, so question number 2, again, determine if the sequence is arithmetic, geometric, same concept here. So we're going to, again, I'm just going to look at the first two. Is there anything I can multiply to 2 to get to 17? That's a whole number. The answer is no. So again, if there's not anything I can multiply, then all of a sudden, geometric's off the table. So now I'm just going to do my adding or subtracting. So 2 and 17, that's 15. That's 15. Oh, looks like I'm adding 15 every time. So it is going to be arithmetic. So when I add the next one together, it should be 107. So this is arithmetic. And for going back to question number 1, I went down 3 spaces. It's cubic. All right. All right. Write the recursive formula. Remember, the recursive formula always begins with a of n minus 1 something. And remember, the something is what you are doing. So I'm at negative 4. I'm at negative 16, negative 64. You guys can read it. So I'm multiplying by negative 4. So with it being multiplying by positive 4. So I'm just going to say times negative 4. Very simple. All right, the next one, question number 4, is, again, what am I doing every single time? Well, when I look, I know that I'm adding 6 every single time. I'm adding 6. So that means it's going to be a of n minus 1 plus 6. All right. All right, so find the missing term or terms in each arithmetic sequence. All right, now remember what you're doing. The first step is you have to take the later term and subtract it by the early term. All right, so the later term is 17 and the early term is 25. So it looks like I'm going to have a negative number. 17 minus 25, that gives me negative 8. That's step 1. And remember, step 2 is you're going to divide by the jumps. How many jumps are between 25 and 17? Well, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4, so I'm going to divide this by 4. So that means my common difference is negative 2. So with it being negative 2, I'm just simply going to subtract 2 every single time. So that's 23, that's 21, that's 19, so on and so forth. Now to make this as quickly, or make this as quick as I can, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just speed up on the evens because I gave you a lot of questions on this. What the answer for question number 8, you're adding 5 every time. So that means it is 41, 46, 51, 56, and then 66. Now again, like I said, I'm going to kind of speed up on the evens, but I'm going to give you the answers to the evens, but I'm really just going to work the odds. So it says find the missing terms in the geometric sequence. Now remember, geometric sequence is a ratio R. And the way you do that is you take your later term and divide it by the early term. That's step 1. So this is my later term, this is my early term. So that's negative 16 divided by negative 1. That gives me 16. Now remember, step 2 is to root based on the jumps. All right, now, how many jumps from negative 1 to negative 16? Well, 1, 2, 3, up 4. There's 4, so I'm going to take the fourth root of 16, which gives me 2. So that means that I am multiplying by 2 every single time to go from -1 to -16. So this will be -2, -4, -8, so on and so forth. All right. So for question number 8, um, I am multiplying by 3. So my r ends up being 3 in here. So that means it's going to be 6, 18, 54, and then 162. So I set this review up to where it's exactly the same for both questions. All right. All right. So given the terms of the arithmetic sequence, find the common difference. So I'm looking for my common difference. All right. So remember, step 1, it was just like the question 2 parts ago. Take the later term and subtract the earlier term. All right. Now remember, you got to pay attention to these little numbers. So 35 comes later than 11. So this is my later term. This is my early term. Okay. So 706 minus 226. I'm going to get a number. Okay. I don't know what that number is because I don't have my calculator. And then remember, step 2 is divide by the jumps. But in this case, we don't have blanks to count. We're just like, okay, well, that's the 11th and that's 35. So the difference between those two is 24. So I'm going to divide by 24. So for question number 9, my common difference is 20. I'm adding 20 every single time. All right. For question number 10, for question number 10, it ends up being the common difference is 6. All right. So next page. All right. Next one here, now we're doing the geometric sequence. Remember, geometric, that's when you're trying to find your ratio. Now remember, step 1 is take the later term and then divide it by the early term. All right. Now, notice real quick, the later term has usually always been on your right. However, just the way the worksheet printed, if you notice, the worksheet has been all right. I had to pause the video, so I'm going to read, maybe repeat myself. So notice the notation here. What we have is we have the later term is actually on the left-hand side. So this is actually the later term. Now on a quiz, I'm not going to have that. I'm always going to have the later term to the right, but unfortunately, the worksheet put it to where over here. So question number 11, we're going to take the later term, 16, and we're going to divide it by 2, which gives me 8. Okay, so again, looking at this is the second term, this is the fifth term. That means I had 3 jumps. So remember, you root by the jumps. So that is the third root of 8, which means it's 2. So r is equal to 2 in this case. All right. Question number 12. Let's see, same thing. I'm going to take the later term, and I'm going to divide it by the earlier term, and then I'm going to take the root of what I got, and I end up being -6. So r is equal to -6. All right, moving on. Okay, so given the recursive formula, we are trying to find the first 5 terms. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, remember, guys, a of 1 is your first term. All right, so first in blank is -35. Now, if you notice, this is a recursive formula. This tells me what I'm doing every single time. I'm subtracting 30. So that means I'm just going to subtract 30 every single time. All right, do not let the simplicity cause you problems. All right, don't let the simplicity cause you trouble. All right, on the next one here, the answer is 28, 36, 44, 52, and lastly 60. Same exact way, those are your answers. All right, question number 15, it says, for this one here, given the closed form formula, find the first 5 terms. So same concept, except now we're dealing with the closed form formula. Now remember, guys, to find the first term, you have to take the little 1 and plug it into n. You got to do that. So it's off to the side. It's 208 minus 200 times 1. All right, so when you do the math, your first term ends up being 8. Now to find the second term, you have to take 2, plug it in there. So 208 minus 200 times 2. And when you do the math, you end up getting negative 192. All right? You do the same thing for 3, 4, and then 5, and then your answer will just, and if you notice, you're subtracting 200 every single time. So if you can figure out the pattern early on, it's going to kind of help you out. You don't necessarily have to worry about plugging in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 every single time. For question 18, negative 18, negative 14, negative 10, negative 6, and then negative 2. All right, next page. All right, it says find, given the explicit formula, same exact thing, except now we're just finding the 22nd term. So I'm just going to take 22, plug it in there. And so when I do that, it ends up being, and I'll just show you the work just so I can say that I'm thorough. When you do the work, when you plug in, your answer ends up being 96. Again, don't let the simplicity give you trouble here. And the answer for 18, I believe, is negative 341. There you go. All right. So find the explicit formula. All right. So remember, guys, do not make the mistake of just saying, oh, that's negative 3n minus 25, because that's a 3 and that's negative 25. It's never that easy. You know that. All right. So what you have to do is actually use the closed form formula for arithmetic. A of n something plus something n minus 1. All right. So that means A of n is equal to something plus something n minus 1. So our first term is negative 25. Our second term is negative 3. I take negative 3, I distribute. We've done this several times now. Make sure you get your positives and negatives right. Combine the first, combine the last. My final answer is negative 3n minus 22. All right, there's my answer. For the next one, you have the first term is negative 8, and then the common difference is 100. So my final answer is going to be 100 n minus 109. All right. All right, question number 11. Find the explicit formula. All right, remember, finding your explicit formula means you still need to do A of n is equal to something plus something n minus 1. All right. Now remember, guys, the only difference between these questions and what we just did was I just told you what the first term is, which you can see your first term is negative 18. And then rather than giving you a common difference, you just have to look. So I'm at negative 8, 18, now I'm at negative 26, now I'm at negative 34. I'm subtracting 8 every single time. So distribute, negative 18 minus 8n plus 8. Combine the first, combine the last, negative 8n minus 10, I believe. All right. Next one is the answer is going to be negative 5n minus, I'm sorry, plus 1. There we go. All right, now we start getting into a little more math because of the fact that if you notice we have the 14th term, but we don't have a of 1, which we have to find. So we're going to have to start using x here. So we have a of n is equal to something plus something n minus 1. Well, we're looking for our first term x. All right, we know our common difference, which is 8. We're going to take little 14, we're going to plug it right there. We're going to take 119, we're going to plug it right there. So it's 119 is equal to x plus 8 n, sorry, messed up, 8 times 14 minus 1, okay? Now remember, 14 minus 1 turns into 13, so I'm just going to go ahead and plus 8 times 13. I believe that's going to be 114, but I'm not, 8 times 13. Yep, 104, 104. So that ends up being 104, which means my first term after I subtract 104, my first term x is equal to 15. All right, so that's my first term. So I now know my first term, which is 15. So now, when I do this formula one more time to actually get my final answer, my first term is now 15. My common difference is 8. Distribute. And that gives me 15 plus 8n minus 8. Combine the first, combine the last. My final answer is 8n plus 7. 8n plus 7. All right. So the next one, after doing all that, it's going to give you 2n plus 11. There you go. All right. All right, so John is saving his money to buy a motorcycle. He already has. All right, so pay attention to the wording. It says he already has 3,200. So that's my first term is 3,200. All right. He will continue to save 600 bucks. Oh, that's my common difference. All right. So create a formula. So A of n is equal to something plus something, n minus 1. I already know my first term. It's 3,200. I already know my common difference, which is 600. Distribute, distribute. I'm at 3,200 plus 600. N minus 600. Combine the first, combine the last. My final answer is 600 N plus, I believe that's going to be 2,600. There you go. All right, it says John's dad has a job for him to do. Now, I'm going to actually do question 26 because it's a little different. It says he will get paid to start the job, which is the first hour, and then he gets paid. All right, here we go. Here we go, 10 hours of work, he earned 565. So I'm going to read that as the 10th term is 565. Okay. After 15 hours, A of 15 is 840. All right. So first thing I need to do is I need to find my common difference. Now, this is an arithmetic sequence. So remember, you're going to, step number one, take the later term subtracted by the early term. So the later term is 840. So 840 minus 565 is going to give me a number. And then step two is I'm going to divide by the jumps. All right, so that's my 10th term, that's my 15th term. So after I subtract, I'm going to divide by 5 to get my common difference. So let's do the work real quick. 840 minus 565, and then 55. So my common difference is 55. This is what D is right here, 55. Okay, so now if you remember going all the way back to the last question, I now have to find my first term. So let me rewrite. D is equal to 55 right here just so I can put it all on the same screen. So I'm going to use my common difference, and I'm just going to choose this. I'm just going to use this, the 10th term, to find out my first term. So A of n is equal to something plus something, n minus 1. My common difference was 55. I just found it, and I'm going to use 565 here, 10 here. Remember, this should look very familiar right now. So I don't know why I put 565 there. Hold on. Let's try that again. I'm going to put X here. I'm going to put 55 here. 565 goes here. 10 goes here. Sorry. 565 is equal to X plus 55. 10 minus 1. Now remember, 10 minus 1 is 9. So I'm just going to go ahead and mentally solve that. So 55 times 9. My next step is 565 is equal to X plus 495. All right. Subtract 495, just like I would in 6th grade algebra. And I believe X is equal to, I want to say that's 70. Let's see. And it is. Okay. So this is my first term. All right. So this is A of 1. Here's my common difference. Here's my first term. Time to plug it back into a formula for my final answer. So A of n is equal to something plus something, n minus 1. I just found my first term. My first term is 70. My common difference was 55. Distribute, distribute. 70 plus 55, n minus 55. Combine the first, combine the last. 55n plus 15. There's your answer. All that work for there. All right, moving on. All right, so question number 2728 is literally the same question as 26. It is exactly the same question. So let's go ahead and do it. Finding our common difference. That's the first thing we got to do. This is my later term. This is my early term. So I'm going to take 331 and I'm going to subtract it by my early term. Get that? And I believe it's 130. I want to say that. And I'm going to take 18 and 31, and I'm going to, remember, step 2 is divide by how many jumps. So that's 13. So my common difference is 10. All right. So I'm doing all this blind, so I'm hoping that works. I think that's 10. A of n is equal to something plus something, because now I got to find my first term. All right. I just found my common difference to be 10. I got to put x for my first term. I'm going to choose this. I'm going to choose 201 because it's the smaller numbers, and I just like working with smaller numbers. 201 is equal to x plus 10, parenthesis, 18 minus 1. All right, 18 minus 1 is 17. All right, so 201 is equal to x plus 170. Subtract 170. Subtract 170. My first term is now x is equal to 31. Okay, so again, follow my logic. That's my first term. That's my common difference. Let's use the formula one more time. Something plus something, n minus 1. I just found my first term. It was 31. There's my common difference, 10. Distribute, distribute. 10n minus 10. Combine the first, combine the last. I'm at 10n plus 21. 10n plus 21. Awesome. And question number 30, exactly the same way. I'm not going to do it at the same time. Your final answer should be 5n plus 12. All right. There we go. Moving on. All right, question number 25. Now we're moving into more geometric stuff. Find the common ratio. Ratio means you are multiplying. All right, so basically, I pretty much whittled it down to multiplying. I'm at 3, and now I'm at negative 12. Now I'm at positive 48. What am I doing? I'm multiplying by negative 4. Nah, I shouldn't have wrote it like that. Let me get that x out of the way. What I'm doing, my common ratio is negative 4, because it's assumed that I'm timesing it by negative 4. All right. Next is question number 30, same exact thing. What am I doing? I am timesing it by 5. All right. Actually, all right, find the explicit formula. Now remember, this is a geometric sequence. All right, I should have put that in the directions, but geometric. Remember, geometric is a of n is equal to something, parentheses, something, n minus 1. Now remember, this first blank is your first term. This is what you're multiplying by. That's it. So in reality, it is something, parentheses, something, n minus 1. My first term is negative 3. That's easy. What am I multiplying by? I'm multiplying by positive 3. I'm done. You don't have to simplify or anything. All right, same thing for question number 32. 2, parentheses, what am I multiplying by? 6, n minus 1. Very simple. All right. Given the explicit formula, find the first 5 terms. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, again, geometric is easy. There's 2 different ways you can look at it. So first way is my first term is 3, and that little 2 means I'm multiplying by 2 every single time. So that would be 6. That'd be 12. That'd be 24, and that would be 48. Easy. But let's say you're on question 34 and you just totally forget. You totally forget that, hey, you know what? I forgot that that's my first term. Let's say I'm taking a test and it just totally went blank. So you'd solve it the exact same way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Simply just take 1, plug it in for n. So off to the side, I'm only going to do this like maybe once. Times 5 to the 1 minus 1 power. Negative 2 times 5 to the 0 power. When you put that into your calculator, that ends up being negative 2. So you're at negative 2. Same thing, if you were to do this with the second one here, you would get negative 10, and then you get negative 50, and then you'd get negative 250, I believe. And then the last one would be negative 1250. Very simple. All right, so given the explicit formula, all I'm going to do is just take 9, plug it in there. All right, very simple. We've done this several times. Now, you're going to get larger numbers, so just be prepared. Negative 781. Make sure you use your negatives correctly. A lot of folks will get into trouble with that. 36 is that right there. All right. Now, question 37, 38, I think we're near the end here. This is probably the most involved. Your formula, remember, is still, well, actually, when you look at it, the things that you don't have, what do I not have? I don't have my first term, so I got to find it. So that means I'm going to have to use x somewhere. Now, remember, the formula is equal to an equals something times something n minus 1. I have to find my first term, okay? My 4 goes here because that's my ratio. And remember, 3,000 goes here, little 6 goes there. So 3072 is equal to x parenthesis 4 to the 6 minus 1 power. Now, this 6 minus 1, guys, go ahead and mentally solve it. It's 5. All right, is equal to x parenthesis 4 to the 5th power. Okay, So do not take 4 to the 6 minus 1 power. You're probably going to mess up, put it in the calculator. So 3072 is equal to x times, when I take 4 to the 5th power, it is 1024, 1024. Now, some people screw up with the way that this is written. This is written the same way if I were to do this, 1024x. All right, it's the same thing. Divide by 1024, divide by 1024, and my first term ends up being 3. So here's my first term. Very simple. So now that I know my first term, let's go ahead and actually do the formula. So a of n is equal to something, parentheses something, n minus 1. I just found my first term, it was 3. My common difference was 4. I'm done. And then lastly, for question number 40, the final answer is -4 parentheses 6 to the n minus 1 power. All right, that's everything. So hopefully you found that just to be as easy as it should be. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.